How? How does that even happen?
An outdoor rally with a guy who's the former president of the United States, who is imminently becoming the nominee for president of the United States,
Right.
someone who we just know, it's just inherent that Donald Trump has multiple credible threats to his life at all times for like the last decade or so. And they weren't even going to provide counter sniper teams at first to this rally, which, as I just said, is outdoors, which is the most potentially fatal, the most dangerous position a politician can ever put themselves in. We're told the counter sniper team showed up like the day before to actually do some of the casing, not, a week prior. And I've done presidential visits. I've done overseas stuff with presidents and detailees, and you're out there a week before. You're going through the motorcade route. You're checking bridges. You're doing all that stuff. None of that was done here. None of it. 8 days before the rally, local police are informed. 5 days before the rally, they meet with the Secret Service, and they're informed that the rally will be held at the Butler Farm Grounds. 3 days before the rally, Secret Service conducts a site visit. Just 3 days before they conducted the site visit. At that point, no counter sniper teams. On the day of the rally, at 9 a.m., they hold the briefing. 46-page slide deck only from the local Butler ESU. Local SWAT and sniper units are there, but the staging locations are laid out. Secret Service doesn't attend. According to attendees of the briefing, no Secret Service or other federal law enforcement is present for this briefing. Secret Service had not initially intended to provide sniper units, but changed course for currently unclear reasons. The briefing included an outline of the security perimeter for the event and areas of responsibility, or AORs. At 9:27 a.m., concurrent, Thomas Matthew Crooks, the alleged shooter, enters a Home Depot located in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. CCTV footage shows the shooter entering alone. A couple minutes later, he purchases a 5-foot aluminum dual platform ladder. That's the only time we see the ladder, by the way, Tucker, in this timeline. The ladder disappears after this. 9:42, he leaves. They identify him. 10:30, snipers are in position. And this is interesting.
Can I just ask, so that morning, Crooks buys the ladder.
Yes.
So that suggests he's already figured out exactly what he's going to do.
He's got an idea.
Interesting. Okay.
So the ladder's in place. 10:30 a.m., 2 local law enforcement snipers are in position on the second floor inside the AGR building, the American Glass Research Building. So they don't go to the roof of this building. They go inside the second floor. They sit there. They're looking out the windows, but they never actually go to the roof or apparently to the back of the building to see where this guy came up. 5:10 p.m., Crooks is first observed by one of the snipers, AGR Sniper 1, at the AGR building. And he takes the picture below of Crooks. Not long after that, and I'll show you these in a second, they can put up, AGR Sniper 1 takes a picture below of a bicycle and what appears to be 2 bags located near the AGR building. It is unclear what happened to the bicycle and bags after July 13th, 2024. And take a look at that.
So they're saying that Crooks rode a bicycle to the event?
There's a van that's later found outside the event in sort of the parking area that's about a mile distance from this AGR building. That is Crooks's van. That van is, we're told, contains explosives, homemade explosives, and explosives that are connected to a remote controlled detonator, which is later found on Crooks's body. So the idea being then, if this bicycle is indeed his, parks the van, gets into the bicycle, carries his rifle, slings it on, you could see the bags in the photo, rides the bicycle from where the van is, that mile distance, to the back of this building.
Okay, so then I'm getting to the next part. I'm sorry to take this from
And
you.
actually, I'm just realizing that I don't believe in the senator's timeline that they have the drone.
What drone?
Crooks's drone. Unless I'm missing it.
He has a drone too?
It's now been reported that he, at some point prior to 5:10, so around 3 in the afternoon or so, when things are still getting prepared, he's there with a drone flying a flight pattern around the area of the Butler Farm Grounds.
That's insane. You can't, I just know from living in DC, you can't just operate drones around law enforcement. It freaks them out.
No, or Don Jr. told me, and I think he said in one of his recent interviews, that when his father was at his house for like an event, like a family event and a party, that he wanted to put up one of his drones, and the software wouldn't allow the drone to even take off because a Secret Service detailee was in the vicinity. My cousin was getting married in southern Pennsylvania, which is pretty close to where Wilmington is, and she wanted to have a drone up at her wedding. And because Biden happened to be in Wilmington at that point, she was within that 30-mile radius. The photographers come to her and say, "Hey, we can't do any drones here."
This is crazy, and it's also sophisticated. So the guy's got. It seems like he's got a van, explosives, a bicycle, a rifle,
a drone,
a ladder, a drone,
a rangefinder.
A rangefinder. I'm going to ask you about that in a second. And the guy knew this was coming. This wasn't a spur of the moment thing. He's buying the ladder that morning. And he's making a shot that everyone is sort of, I know everyone's like, oh, it's not 140 yards, not that far. I think it was 140 yards.
It's a boot camp shot.
Yeah, boot camp shot. Still, I don't know. I fired that rifle yesterday. You kind of have to.
With no scope.
He had no scope?
No scope, iron rails.
Are you sure?
Yes.
He used iron sights to hit someone.
He used iron sights.
In the face at 140 yards.
My take on that, and just my assessment, was that he knew that because he was lying prone, he knew that a scope or an EOTech or something would present more of a picture to any counter snipers. So if you wanted to stay lower, if you wanted to stay more out of sight, and he's using the angle of the building to conceal himself, that you wouldn't want something that
okay,
was
I'm calling bullshit
up.
on this whole thing. I'm trying not to use swear words. Excuse me. This is not plausible. This kid's a 20-year-old, much bullied, socially awkward, weird kid who washes out of the rifle team because he can't shoot. He's got no social media profile. His search history suggests no research into any of this, and he sounds way too sophisticated.
And what the videos that they're not talking about are the fact that he appears in this like BlackRock ad, and as well as a number of YouTube videos regarding computer programming that he was in the previous.
Okay, so I know that all of your former military. I wasn't even in the Boy Scouts, but I shoot a lot. I have all my life. And I just disagree with respect with all the former special forces and CIA guys and guys like you. I think 140 yards with iron sights hitting a man in the face, pretty good shot. I'm just saying that. I do. No one else agrees with a boot camp shot, but this guy didn't go to boot camp. And as someone who also didn't go to boot camp, but shoots a lot, 223, a lot, including yesterday, I think it's a decent shot. I do. It's hitting steel the size of a tea saucer at 140 yards with iron sights. Like, that's not, I mean, I could probably do that, but again, I shoot a lot.
Well, and Tucker, there's another piece.
But for a guy who's 20 years old, like, how much range time do you have? Like, where did he learn that?
There is some reporting. So this was his father's gun.
Yeah.
And so after flying the drone, he drives all the way back to Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, which is a distance of about an hour, both ways. So he drives an hour back, says, "Hey, Dad, I'm going to take the gun out." And the dad later tells media, at least as of right now, and caveat to all this stuff because we're going off of what we have right now, that the dad says, "I thought he was going to the range." So this sounded like that was a regular thing that he did.
Okay. Then that's, I mean, it's not a crazy long shot, but it's just, but you kind of have to commit a little bit to learning how to operate the rifle if you're going to hit it at 140.
Listen to this part, because if you want to talk about the shot, so a lot of people think that he was just sitting there prone, waiting for the opportune moment. Trump happens to turn at the last moment. That's it. That's not what happened. What happened was a couple of these local police officers, and we've gone through the timeline where they take the picture of him, they're radioing the messages back, and Trump's team, the actual team around Donald Trump, doesn't get any of these messages, because the easiest thing to do would be to say, "Hey, let's check that guy out before we bring the president out on stage." They never relay the message to Trump. They never give that to his team, his direct body detail. They never hear about this guy. So there's a threat. There's a threat that's identified an hour prior. They're taking photos of him. They're checking on him. They lose sight of him. That's when he goes up on the building, we're told. And they're calling in saying, "Hey, there's a guy. He's got a rangefinder." Okay,
so that's what I want to ask you. So will you explain for people who aren't familiar with the device, what's a rangefinder?
So a rangefinder is something that somebody might use in site surveying. Someone might use in laying out a plot of land, or a nice barn like this one or something like that.
And in deer hunting.
in hunting,
Yeah.
and of course in a sniper team. A rangefinder is used by the spotter, so sniper teams are always called that because you've got a spotter and a shooter.
Right.
So the spotter is the person who's doing the range finding. They might be calculating wind. They might be.
It shows you the
binoculars.
distance.
It gives you the distance
away from something you're looking
from whatever it is. Right. So
Yeah.
you're painting it with a laser, and you're saying.
So if you
this is how far away
if you're trying to protect, the most controversial political figure in the world at an outdoor rally, and someone shows up with a rangefinder, like you can't even bring at the RNC, you couldn't even bring your Juul, and you couldn't even
you couldn't have a vape in there. Yeah.
Right, because it might increase your testosterone, and that's a threat.
Exactly.
But how do you get a rangefinder into a protected event? That's like the craziest thing I've ever heard.
So he never goes in through the magnetometers, as far as we know. There was reporting early on that the rangefinder was found in the magnetometers, but the current reporting, caveat, is that he always stayed outside the effective Secret Service perimeter, that there's this whole range of fencing. By the way, for the record, I'm not saying anything about what I think right now. This is the official story.
Right.
So there's this whole setup off to the side of where Trump is standing, where there's a fence and there's nothing. There's no Secret Service. There's a couple of patrols. There's these guys in the building. Anybody could have walked up with anything.
How does the kid know where that unprotected area is?
So he's casing the area. He's going there prior. He's flying the drone. He's checking it all out. But for whatever reason, he just knows to ride the bike directly there, and then he's going to have a direct shot from the top of the roof.
This kid doesn't have a job. I mean, he's 20 years old.
He works in a nursing home.
I'm sorry. That's right. I read that.
Very, very tactically.
No, but that's right.
Job.
He's changing bedpans by day, but he somehow is able to assess exactly the place that's got the height advantage, this building, and that is unprotected. Like, how would he know? I mean, the luck involved is extraordinary.
It's more than just that. There's luck, because we're also told, and again, this timeline doesn't quite have it, that at one point the local police, the Butler police, do go out. And they send a couple of units to go, a couple of guys over to go and say, hey, we think there's someone on that roof.